Randi-lee. On the show, we interview other writers and we talk about mental health from their personal journeys. If you have not already hit that like and subscribe button, go ahead, do that now so that you never miss an episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday again. I know lots of Sunday episodes now. It's amazing. Um, so every time I see that beginning, I'm like, oh, I miss my glasses. But you know what? More than that, guys, more than that, I need to change it. It's so old now. I keep thinking, well, I need to make it prettier and stuff, but then I just don't. Maybe one day. Anyway, today with us, we have Janet Schultz. Hello, how are you?
It's good to be here.
How's the weather for you? I'm being nosy out there.
North Carolina, today was a beautiful day. It's about, I think, in the 60s.
Okay, hold on. I gotta figure out what that means for me. Hold on. 60 Fahrenheit to Celsius. 15. Okay, that's not
Mm-hmm.
bad. That's not bad. We were in and around there too today, actually. I think we were around 12, so it's all
Mm-hmm.
right.
No, nice.
Um, yeah, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
sunny, which is quite nice because the last few days were very rainy.
Full day since.
Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit about who Janet is.
Well, Janet is someone who refuses to be a victim. I am not a victim of my circumstances, and someone that wants her circumstances to count for something and to make a difference in other people's lives, at the same time giving back to people. In my case, my passion is combining education and entrepreneurship and providing work employment opportunities for people on the spectrum.
I love that, and we will get to that. But what I love most about all of that was that you said that you refuse to be a victim, and that it's all about helping other people and you know making the world a better place. I feel like is what it really comes down to, and I think everybody should strive to do that. Um, so why would you be a victim? Like that's a very specific word you used.
Mm-hmm.
So what circumstances would lead to that word being used?
Well, because I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father. Okay. Sexual abuse as a child, unexpected. Those were challenges for me. Being a single mother, having been forced back into the workplace myself after being at home, homeschooling my children, my girls.
Mm.
So my life was just uprooted and just changed, and a lot of what I thought my life would look like isn't at all what it is. So a lot of death and grief over what could have been, perhaps what I thought maybe should have been, and just making sure that I make all that I've been through count for something and not be wasted. And so it's take all of my experiences in life, Randy,
And
have
I
led
love
me
that
to this
because
point.
that's exactly the way I feel. The ups and downs and twirly whirlies, as I like to say. Um, but you said something there, and I was like, ooh, but I have a very short term memory. Um, you had mentioned, I mean, a lot of different things, and so many of it stands out. But the very first thing you said was about having the alcoholic father, and when I was a teenager, my mom was got remarried, and so there was an alcoholic stepfather. What was your experience like living in that environment? I know I've talked about mine a lot on the show for those who've listened before, but what is yours?
It wasn't a safe place. Never knowing what would happen. My brother, myself, and my youngest brother, there were three of us,
Okay.
and my brother, youngest brother, and myself, we were the targets. Besides my mother, she was also a target. But in having meals, I can remember, and it still affects me today, that being around the dinner table was a very uncomfortable and scary place to be, because I would eat with my head down. We all pretty much would, because if you had your head down, then you felt like you were out of harm's way. And so even when I had my family of my own, I just really felt it so important, so everyone felt safe and we could talk and commune together without fear.
Yes.
So that's a kind of an experience that stands out in my mind, that because of that I directly wanted my family life to not be that.
I love that so much, and that's kind of the movement that's happening. That's that um, stopping intergenerational trauma. That's the buzzwords around it, but really that's what it is saying I don't want my kids to experience
There
the
you
same
go.
thing I did. And then how, as you grew,
Right. But they experience things still.
we try our best. That's all we can do,
Yeah.
right? That's all we can do. So then as you grew up,
That's right. You
um,
learn as you go.
exactly, that's exactly it. Um, oh, where'd my question go? My brain flipped away. Oh, so as you grew, how did you learn to deal with all of the things that had happened?
Well, actually, I didn't for until probably the last, I'd say, the last 5 years. I'm 66 now, and so it's taken me and all this time, and God put so many wonderful people in my life to help me along the way, no matter where I found myself. But when I had my first divorce, I lost my mind. Um, and so I had a nervous breakdown, and it took me years to get over that. So I definitely am now, but you know, just the grief and the loss of it's a death. Divorce is a death of something, and
Yeah.
in some ways, it's worse than death because that person is still out there living their life. But so you really don't have a place that you can go to, something that's final, and say that's where that person is. That it's a closed chapter. They're dead. So that person for several years and taught school and cleaned houses to make to supplement my income. Raising my two daughters, I was very insecure. I was fearful. I didn't have a lot of confidence in my ability to parent. Well, first of all, it's not a natural place for a woman to find herself. It's unnatural. Um, and so I made a lot of mistakes, which I have I have to consciously even today, you know, um, revisit those with that's where I was, that's who I was, and I'm a lot harder on myself than my girls. They don't
It's usually the
remember their
case.
childhood being as bad as I make it probably could, and I grieved over that for them, you know. From that, and but it truly wasn't until my second marriage My girls had gone off to college. So I didn't date anyone at all during the time that I raised them until they went off to college. And so I started thinking about, well, maybe it's time. I knew that I couldn't get married while my girls were still at home. We were too intermeshed with one another. No man would survive that. So I knew that that's not something that needed to happen. And I didn't even have the desire. I mean, men to start with, Randy, scared me.
Which makes
And
sense.
still, it's taken me years not to be afraid of men. It seems like in every situation that I found myself, first, in my own home when I was growing up, whether it be at a workplace or just different environments, there would be that predatorial person that somehow they just knew that you were vulnerable
Yeah.
and they would target me. And so when that happens, you become very paralyzed. You just feel like that you can handle yourself in situations that you've been targeted and put in a very, very vulnerable position. But when it actually happens, you I froze. I mean, I would freeze. I didn't know how to get out of the situation of intimidation.
Which again is a very
That
natural
happened.
response given your history.
And yeah, because I mean, that's how I responded to the situation in my home where I was sexually abused was paralyzed. I was paralyzed, frozen. I froze. Of my own, Randy, that I even recalled that particular abuse happening. And then it became very real to me. And I know looking back that I see the world from a perspective and I react to things in my world a certain way because of what I went through. And so understanding that I see through a different lens helped me to understand myself better and not to tell myself or look at myself in a way that was condemning and that, there's something wrong with me. You know, I react the way I reacted because of what I've been through. But I want to grow out of it. I don't want to be that, you know. So I was refused to be a victim. I I that's why I'm saying past that so that I can be able to share help other people having gone through that, but also to have empathy, understanding. It's helped me to be a better teacher. It's helped me to be a better mom in my older age. It's helped me to be a better grandmother. It's helped me to be a better friend. I understand myself better.
That's
I
huge.
I I am able to set boundaries for myself, and that I know that I cannot go in certain environments because it's not a safe place for me. Meaning, and I don't mean to say safe place. I mean that word can be overdone. And I
Yeah.
want to at this stage in my life, in my season, I want to be my best. I don't want to repeat patterns of destruction and sabotage, which I have in the past. And so my second marriage, getting back to that, is where my most of my growth happened. I believe it was the abuse in my childhood, and by this time in my second marriage, I already dealt with my divorce. I was over that, the first divorce. I had my mind back, but still, I was very insecure. I was very fragile. My emotions. I was very hypersensitive, you know, and I had read so many books many books on how to be a better wife, how to understand men. I felt like, man, I'm prepared. I am prepared for this second marriage. I'm not going to go into this marriage, with baggage. I felt like, damaged goods, I'm damaged goods. Do I have anything to offer anybody? Why would anyone want to have a relationship with me, just, in the beginning? And so I truly, in my second marriage, I know and I experienced true love. I wasn't in love with my first husband. And I can say that because I know what real love is. I know what being in love feels like. And we had some good years in the beginning. And then blended families. I mean, that's another whole podcast.
Yes.
Blended families are the most difficult relationships one can have. Blended families, and we knew each other. We knew each other from church. His wife and he divorced, and then somehow we found each other again and started dating, but had no feelings whatsoever towards each other until we started dating. And just that love from him too just kind of became a natural thing. Very comfortable with him. He was the one. And then me with my baggage, my insecurities. I felt like, that was something that his daughter, he had a daughter, and she was older in her teenage years. Very difficult time to get married to someone when they still have teenage children in the home.
Yeah.
And he had his children. And, again, I'm looking through the world with a different lens to see fathers and daughters relate to one another because I'm not certain what's normal
Yeah.
and what's not. And so a lot of trouble and problems occurred. And the daughter kind of used that to draw a wedge between her father and myself. And it, again, I lost it, in that relationship too, and emotionally was unstable. And um, so that marriage ended. He said, he didn't want to put the work in it, what needed to be done in order to save the marriage. He chose his children over his marriage. And oftentimes that's the case in a blended family, when it comes to that. So he made his choice, and so that was very devastating. But during that marriage, Randy, we had a company together. Well, he had
Oh.
started it before I came along, but it was a construction company, and I had always wanted to have a business. I had home-based businesses along the way, but nothing really ever stuck. So I had a chance during that marriage to come alongside of him and partner with him in the business. And I realized some things about myself that I was good at and that I was in my zone with. And he gave me the freedom to do those things. And I gained such confidence in myself, and I was in my zone in doing that.
That is fantastic.
So that marriage, I grew a tremendous, yeah, I grew exponentially, because of that situation. Um, the marriage had to die, um, and that's sad, because that's how it ended. So,
Yeah.
um, but I recognized the things that I did wrong, and I recognized things in my life that, yes, that was my hand that was dealt to me, but I have to own my own weakness. I have to own my own mistakes. And I'm never going to get better unless I do that and take
Mm-hmm.
ownership of it, of what I, of what is mine to take ownership of.
Yes. Okay, you said so much there. I'm going to do a small little recap. I was taking notes of all the wonderful things because there was so much and I didn't want to forget. Okay, so you started off with, um, and this is what I was trying to
Well,
remember you said
and
before.
I get on a roll, Randy. You're just going to have to.
Oh, it's all good. I love to interrupt people, but I was just captivated with the story, so that's why I was just writing stuff down. So I'm going to recap it now for everybody. So you had said this a couple times actually, and this is amazing. Loss of what could have been. You have to grieve for what could have been, and that is something that I think a lot of people don't understand is when you're thinking about, and this was something we came across when um, my kid first got diagnosed with autism, and I'm on all those parent groups and stuff, and they're all talking about there was like a faction of people that were saying you can't grieve it, that's thinking that your kid is not good enough the way they are. And then there was that other faction of people that were like, I'm grieving for what I thought their life was going to be like. I'm on that side. There was definitely that period of, oh my goodness, she's not going to be a doctor. Not to say that you can't, but my situation, no, she's probably never going to be. Nor does she want to, which is fine. But there was that moment of grief of what I thought was going to be that, idyllic mother-daughter relationship I think you see on TV. That wasn't gonna happen. But other things, divorce is things that you have to grieve. When you move, when you change careers, there's so many different things that people don't consider is grieving, but you do grieve it. Just not the same way necessarily as a death, I guess, but it's definitely grief. And then I'm going to come back to that point because I want to ask you something else about that one. Then you said about seeing the world in your perspective. Ugh. Yes. Once you kind of shift the chain, like realize that you are seeing situations from your perspective that you gained through trauma in this case. Oh, it makes a world of difference when you can shift it and see it in a different way. Oh, therapy did wonders for me in that way. um, setting, and this goes along with you were saying learning to set boundaries, taking ownership of the things that were in your control, because there is so much out of our control that we blame ourselves for, but it's out of our control. And then this all wraps up nicely in our little bow of that's why sometimes we'll think that we're damaged good, but and we don't know what kind of relationship is normal because we didn't have that growing up necessarily. And then the freeze, when you talked about when the sexual abuse was happening and the response was freeze, it is so normal to do that. And it's heartbreaking at the same time when you think of any kind of really trauma or thing that when you look back on, you go, oh my gosh, all I did was freeze. I should have done something else. I could have, no, especially if you're a child, but like, no. And that's why this shifting perspectives and all that other stuff is so important. So, with all of that stuff that you've said that I just recapped in mind, what kind of shifted mindset do you have or had to go through to get over that whole freeze response that took place? Because it is scary when you look back. I've done this with myself in therapy where I look back and go, I should have, and my therapist is, really? No. Let's go back and replay this because you should have nothing. So how did that perspective change? How did you finally gain the wisdom to be able to change it?
To change what specifically? Can you be more specific? What you're asking?
Yeah, like your perspective, because you talked about how you had to change your perspective, your world perspective, and I'm thinking, and I may be totally off on what I heard and what I'm assuming, and this is why you're gonna correct me. But through trauma, we start seeing the world through that lens of trauma, and that there's going to be people that are out to hurt us because that is what we learned. How have you, if you have, changed that perspective for yourself?
Well, I've kind of become more vulnerable in that I put myself out there, like I'm doing now, for example, and I'm more confident in myself, and I can stand up under certain circumstances, even though they might end up being not as healthy as I had hoped that they would be. But and just also getting building relationships, not really relationships. I wouldn't even call them relationships. Um, because since my second marriage, I haven't, I, just, you know, that's why I'm pouring day by. I don't even have that interest as much as I have a purpose. And it's called a business, and it's a business. But just letting my guard down and not having that wall up, because I know that I have it, and I guess,
Mm-hmm.
but I try to have become more not as guarded. Perspectives are different,
Yeah.
and they may not necessarily be healthy for me, that I need to just kind of relax, because I'm at a place now in my life that I can say that I am emotionally and mentally healthy, because I haven't always been, post traumatic stress disorder. Some people say that I have in my older years. Definitely ADHD, um, things like that. So, just recognizing those things about myself, knowing myself, then I can feel more comfortable and know putting myself in situations and being vulnerable and knowing uh, what boundaries to set, not just for myself, but other people. And when I feel like it's getting uncomfortable, or then I feel I can safely not put necessarily push through it. I feel like I may not be able to handle. That's not necessarily the right thing, but too simple. But learning that I have seen and experienced healthy men just in my church. Say for example, my church. You know,
Yeah.
um, that I can see healthy men in action. I'm not so afraid for them to come close to me and just say hello.
Yeah. The
Threat
relationships come in different forms.
and see, they're not a, yeah. And so I can actually see myself, and I'm kind of can actually uh, say good morning or hello, how are you doing today, and have a conversation with a man of my age and be okay with that. I'm not there's no agenda, there's nothing, you know, and seeing how healthy men can be, and looking at relationships too. You have people in your life that you can that have come across your path that healthy family looks like. That's what a healthy marriage looks like. Because I didn't know these things. I'm learning these things, and it's never too late to learn. It's never too late,
Yes.
um, to grow out of your past, so you won't pass it on. My desire when all this happened to me in my first marriage and all, I was my desire was, please don't let this pattern continue. Just I don't want this my grandchildren But I had to realize that girls they have to experience things have happened to them, and they were able to bounce back and grow from it. And one of my daughters, I like to think that it's because a lot of it they saw their mom do it. I modeled that kind of behavior. That yeah, mom had a hard time, she lost her mind, but she never quit. She kept going. She always strived to.
Oh, well, hopefully Janet will be back in a minute. I know our connection's been a little wonky. While I'm waiting for her to come back, something that she said, knowing herself, that is so important. I mean, she said a lot of great things, but knowing yourself is one of the hardest things to do in life. And yet, once you finally do it, it's one of the most amazing things because it frees you from so much of the goop. Yeah, I'm going to call it goop. Of that ick in life when you finally figure out who the heck you are and you're able to go, no, I'm not going to accept these certain things happening in my life. You can set boundaries with other people because you know what you can and what you cannot take. And it's just the most amazing thing. I was hoping she'd be back by now, but I'm just going to keep rambling for a few more minutes and see if she comes back. Because I've been taking notes, so I have other things I can say. Let me see. So, yeah, let's talk about knowing yourself a little bit more. There's been, I wrote a whole book about it, right? Embracing Me is all about getting to know myself. And something that helped me to do it, and everybody knows I'm a big proponent of therapy, was therapy. Because you think you know yourself. But as you start to, and this is something Janet talked about, she talked about changing her perspective, which, so important. It's so important. That was huge. So one of the exercises that I did in therapy was, and she talked about ownership as well. Those two things go hand in hand. So one of the exercises was talking about instances from the past where I thought I had more control. I thought that I was doing something wrong. And my therapist would say, there was like a worksheet too. And it was like, what happened? How'd you deal with it? How much of this was in your control? Well, once you actually start breaking that stuff down, and what emotions, because apparently I was really bad at naming emotions. Shocking, right? So as we're going through this worksheet, week after week, had to work on it for a while. It got to the point of, okay, so this is the situation. This is how you felt. But now let's see what could have changed, right? Based on switching the perspective. So for instance, and I've talked about this before, as a teenager, having an alcoholic stepfather, and, my mom would say, go upstairs. Well, my perspective as a teenager at the time was, she's just trying to get rid of me. Now, as an adult, I'm like, I would have done the same thing because you want to protect your kid. So that switch in perspective, it took a long time to get there, but it is one of the most crazy things to go, oh my goodness. Janet's just, there she is. One of the most crazy things to change your perspective on an incident where I'm like, wow, I thought that I was being told to get rid of, and yet here it is that I was being protected. And how much of that was actually my responsibility? And wow, it's just mind-blowing when you can finally make these connections and go, what I thought was and what is are two very different things. Janet is trying to join us again. She's having a little bit of issues, so I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to get her back on or not right this minute. We might have to have her come back another time. But I'm gonna answer her email. Maybe she's coming. So I'm going to ramble for another minute or two, because this is a really good topic. Even though, unfortunately, technical difficulties happen, this is really a good segue into life and going into the winter months when a lot of people have what they call the winter blues, and with the holidays coming up, and that can be very stressful because we miss people who might not be here anymore, or we're stressed out because they haven't always been great situations. So changing our perspective, so looking back, and I would never have been able to do this on my own. So going back to that, what I was saying was that, it was actually that I was being protected. And as soon as that light bulb happened for me, I went, oh my gosh. I thought I had 90% of responsibility because I thought, again, not being wanted, being told to go away, when in all actuality, I had maybe 5% responsibility in that moment because I wasn't doing anything wrong to make my stepfather angry. I was not doing anything wrong to get sent away. However, it was something that had to happen for protective reasons. And oh my goodness, changing that is insane. Oh, she's gone again. So I think that we might have to have her come back another day. But I do want to say on her behalf, because we got pretty far in our conversation. Let me bring up her little profile here. Actually, it'll be easier on the computer. Man, I've had technical difficulties before, but this takes the cake. But that's okay because she gave us enough information to really get some great coping strategies about changing things and ownership. And we are not damaged goods. It doesn't matter what's happened in our life. We are absolutely not damaged goods, even though we definitely can feel like that at times. I definitely have had my fair share of feeling it. But we are not. Absolutely not damaged goods. And if you're feeling that way, I am so sorry. Okay. And now my computer's going slow. Hold on. I want to read this for her so that, I can promote her here because her story has been absolutely amazing. Okay, so let me see here. I'm going to read this because she's not here to say it for herself, and I definitely want to give a huge shout out to her. So, she's a special, I cannot talk anymore even though I'm reading. Special educator, and passionate social entrepreneur, like she said. And in 2012, she founded Blue Jay Cleaning Solutions. So this is what she's working on right now, which is really cool, guys. It's a small office cleaning company with a big mission to provide meaningful employment for individuals on the autism spectrum. And she, sharing her story, you can really feel her passion for wanting to make things better for others and to give back to the world. Over the next 9 years, oh my gosh, 2012 was 9 years ago already. Janet grew Blue Jay into a successful, impact-driven business known for its meticulous, eco-friendly cleaning and its inclusive hiring model. In 2021, she successfully sold the company. How crazy is that? And during her time at Blue Jay, Janet developed a replicable, I said that right, business prototype created with and for individuals on the spectrum. Today, that model is available to qualified individuals who want to launch their own Blue Jay cleaning solutions in their communities. That's very cool. Continuing the mission of inclusion, dignity, and opportunity, which is way too amazing. We need more businesses out there wanting to give people with disabilities a chance to do something. And then provide link. Here we go. Da, da, da. Oh, she's back. I was just reading all about your business, the Blue Jays that you had started and you had sold, and you made the business available to, help those on the autism spectrum. I was just reading that to everybody for you. Just rambling on and killing time, hoping you'd come back. Uh-oh, I don't know if I can hear you. Oh, and she's gone again. All right, well, I think that's about everything for now. Um, we might just have to have Janet come back another day, but I think that we got a lot of her story, and I really appreciate her coming on, even though this was a little weird at the end with my rambling, but that's okay. I really appreciate her coming on. This is, of course, such important information to share out there with the world. I say it every episode because it's true. And I just want to commend her on creating a business where she's giving people on the autism spectrum a chance to thrive, because that is what I'm looking for my kid, to find a business that'll give her a chance, because they have a lot to offer. In fact, just a rambling episode. Last year, was it last year or the year before? It might have been the year before. I had a co-op student who was absolutely amazing, and she was on the autism spectrum, and she was fantastic, and I wrote her the most glowing recommendation letter, and I really hope that she found a business to give her a chance, because she was so creative, so nice, so funny, and she just, you got to take a chance on people sometimes. Of course, be sure to share these episodes out and check out, just go to Google, type in Blue Jay, the cleaning company, because if you type in Blue Jay, you'll get the birds, or the baseball team. It was so sad they lost last night. But Blue Jay Cleaning Company, and you'll see all about it, what she did, what she built. It's very cool. And remember, the only way to end the stigma in mental health is to speak openly and honestly.